Life in Iran is governed by a strict set of rules established by the Islamic Republic. This extensive collection of photographs depicts Iranian society before the Islamic Revolution of 1979, revealing a remarkably different Iran. At that time, especially for women, the country seemed more promising. Everyone knew that when conditions improved for women, everyone benefited. However, after the revolution, the approximately 70-year advances in Iranian women's rights regressed almost instantly. The 1979 revolution, which united Iranians from various social strata, had its roots in the country's long history. Different groups, such as clergymen, landowners, intellectuals, and merchants, had previously come together during the constitutional revolution of 1905 to 1911. Despite ongoing efforts to implement satisfactory reforms, social tensions resurfaced, and the intervention of foreign powers like Russia, the United Kingdom, and later the United States further complicated the situation. In 1921, the United Kingdom supported Reza Shah Pahlavi in establishing a monarchy. However, in 1941, both the United Kingdom and Russia forced Reza Shah into exile, allowing his son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, to assume the throne. In 1953, during a power struggle between Mohammad Reza Shah and Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, the United States Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, and the United Kingdom's Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, conspired to overthrow Mossadegh's government. These historical events paved the way for the Islamic Revolution of 1979, which radically changed the course of Iran and had a significant impact on women's rights in the country. Since then, Iranian women have been struggling to regain the lost advances and seek equality and freedom within a society governed by Islamic laws. Afterward, Mohammad Reza Shah made the decision to dissolve the parliament and implemented an ambitious modernization program known as the White Revolution. This initiative aimed to reduce the influence and wealth of landowners and clerics, promoting significant changes in rural economies and resulting in a rapid process of urbanization and westernization in the country. However, this transformation brought concerns regarding democracy and human rights. Although the program achieved success in economic terms, the benefits were not distributed equitably. Changes in social norms and institutions were widely felt, but there was a growing opposition to the Shah's policies during the 1970s. During this period, global economic instability and fluctuations in Western oil consumption posed serious threats to the Iranian economy, which still heavily relied on high-cost projects and programs. Despite a decade of extraordinary economic growth, high government spending and rising oil prices resulted in high inflation rates and stagnation in the purchasing power and living standards of Iranian citizens. Throughout the 1970s, the economic landscape in Iran was facing deterioration, and simultaneously, the socio-political repression promoted by the Shah's regime was escalating. Opportunities for political participation were scarce, and opposition parties, such as the National Front, a comprehensive coalition of nationalists, clerics, and non-communist left-wing parties, as well as the pro-Soviet Tuda party, masses, were marginalized or banned. Any form of social or political protest was often stifled through censorship, surveillance, and harassment. Arbitrary arrests and torture practices became common. In this context, something unprecedented happened. Secular intellectuals, who were previously engaged in reducing the authority and power of Shiite clerics, ulama, changed their position. Many of these intellectuals were drawn to the populist appeal of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a former philosophy professor in Qom who had been exiled in 1964 after speaking out against the recent reform program. Now they argued that with the help of the ulama, it would be possible to overthrow the Shah. In this scenario, members of the National Front, the Tudeh Party, and various dissident groups joined forces with the ulama in broad opposition to the Shah's regime. Meanwhile, even in exile, Khomeini continued to tirelessly preach about the evils of the Pahlavi government, accusing the Shah of irreligiosity and submission to foreign powers. During the 1970s, thousands of tapes and printed copies of Khomeini's speeches were smuggled back into Iran. This happened at a time when an increasing number of unemployed Iranians and poor workers, mostly recent migrants from rural areas, felt disillusioned with the cultural emptiness of modern urban life in Iran. In this context, they sought guidance from the ulama. The Shah's dependence on the United States, his close alliance with Israel, involved in extensive conflicts with predominantly Muslim Arab states, and the reckless economic policies of his government further fueled dissenting rhetoric among the masses. Discontent with the Shah's policies and a growing perception of his submission to foreign interests created fertile ground for support for the movement led by Khomeini and the ulama. The Ayatollah's discourse gained strength and resonance, mobilizing a significant base of supporters and contributing to the eruption of a revolution that would radically change the fate of Iran. Despite rapid economic growth and modernization of infrastructure, Iran underwent a drastic transformation in little over a generation. The society, which used to be traditional, conservative, and rural, was replaced by an industrial, modern, and urban society. However, a widespread sentiment emerged, indicating that in both agriculture and industry, many initiatives were undertaken prematurely, and that the government, due to corruption or incompetence, failed to fulfill all the promises made. This dissatisfaction became evident in the protests against the regime in 1978. As tensions between Khomeini and the Shah escalated, protests began in October 1977, evolving into a campaign of civil resistance involving both secular and religious elements. The protests gained even more strength in 1978, especially after the Cinema Rex fire, which was considered the catalyst for the revolution. Between August and December of that year, strikes and demonstrations paralyzed the country. On January 16, 1979, the Shah left Iran and went into exile, marking the end of the Persian monarchy. Power was transferred to a regency council and to Shapur Bakhtiar, who served as the opposition's prime minister. Around this time, Ayatollah Khomeini received an invitation from the government to return to Iran, and he did so, being warmly welcomed by thousands of Iranians in Tehran. Shortly after, on February 11th, the collapse of the monarchical regime occurred. Guerrillas and rebel troops engaged in armed street battles with forces loyal to the Shah, resulting in the victory of the rebels and the establishment of Khomeini's official authority. On April 1st, 1979, the Iranian people went to the polls for a national referendum, choosing to become an Islamic republic. Additionally, a new theocratic republican constitution was formulated and approved, with Khomeini established as the country's supreme leader in December of 1979. This revolution marked a fundamental shift in Iran's political structure, placing the theocratic system at the center of power and profoundly impacting the country's political and social trajectory in the following decades. The Iranian Revolution surprised the whole world with its unique characteristics. Unlike other revolutions that are often triggered by war defeats, financial crises, peasant uprisings, or military dissatisfaction, this revolution occurred during a period of relative prosperity in the country. Despite this, it brought profound and rapid changes and was widely supported by the population, resulting in the exile of many Iranians opposed to the new regime. This revolution replaced an authoritarian and pro-Western secular monarchy with an anti-Western Islamic theocracy based on the concept of Velayat-e-Faqih, guardianship of the Islamic jurist. The new political system oscillated between authoritarianism and totalitarianism, marking a drastic change in Iran's political landscape. Ayatollah Khomeini, self-proclaimed messenger of Allah, had a clear vision for Iran: a return to conservative Islamic values and the elimination of Western influences. This vision implied a radical reinterpretation of Islamic social guidelines, seeking to revive religious practices from over 1,000 years ago. The modest rights gained by women during the Shah's rule were swiftly revoked by Khomeini. Professional women were mass dismissed and encouraged to solely focus on domestic tasks, caring for children and husbands. Quickly, every aspect of women's lives came under strict government control. Laws were passed to prohibit the use of Western clothing, requiring women to be fully covered with traditional Islamic hijab at all times in public. Not a single strand of hair could be visible, and even open-toed shoes were not allowed. A special government agency was established to enforce the moral dress code, with the Center for Prevention of Vice and Promotion of Virtue exclusively focusing on women who violated the dress rules in any way. The Revolutionary Guard's military training was expanded to include policing women's compliance with the dress code.